All right. Should be good. So do you want to take it away, Dr. Howard?
Yeah, you going to share the
I-
screen or you want me to share mine?
Nope, I got you. Sorry. A little
That's
slow,
okay.
trying to do a bunch of things. Can you see this, the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Dr. Jaronski, for the introduction. And I think our goal today was to really engage the students in a conversation, or our staff in a conversation around how to engage in civil discourse. We've done this a couple of times before, I think at the student leadership retreat with our students before. And so this is going to be sort of an interactive presentation that we'll do to give people an opportunity to give feedback and hopefully prepare people to have a civil discourse. So we'll jump right into it. So you want to show the next slide?
Yes, sir, I will. There you go.
So we thought we'd start with, kind of establishing what's the baseline. Like, one of the things that everyone has been hearing, you can't be existing or coexisting in this society without hearing about all the things that are out there that create an opportunity for people to disagree and really not to be able to come to common ground, right? So to acknowledge those things we thought was really important to talk about what were some of the things out there or the burning issues. We're in the middle of an election where at this point we still don't know who the president's going to be. They're still counting votes, and as a result, not my words, but I think we've had a variety of people say that we are really voting for trying to figure out what our country is all about. This is going to be one of those elections that will determine or help determine exactly what type of country we want to be or aspire to be. And these are all pivotal situations. I think we've had in history, we've had situations like that where we've had to make some type of moral decision about where we're going to, what kind of country we're going to be. There's an economic impact because of COVID and the COVID-19, and we're all living in a different environment. There's an issue that we've had from time to time about borders and security in the country and DACA and the number of students that are here that may come to the country of no faults of their own. And as a result, now they have grown up. And what do we do with those folks that are here? We are a country of immigrants. And so going back to what our values are all about is important. Conversations around healthcare and how should we have healthcare for all of those to cover everybody, regardless of their financial situation? Is it a human right to have health care? Is one of the discussions that we've been having. And then you can't stop without having a conversation about Black Lives Matter and defunding the police or police reform as a whole. So all of those issues, like usually we wrestle with one of these issues, all of these things are going on simultaneously. And so the discussion around how do we talk about the heart of our country and what we're all about is really important because of all those things that are happening. And I know as a person of color myself, I have to wrestle with the understanding of the Black Lives Matter movement myself. And one of the things that that was a defining moment for me was this whole conversation around this is an opportunity for us as a country to pivot when it comes to kind of the civic engagement and kind of civil rights around Black Lives Matter. And so my thought process was, I consider myself fairly young, but there's this thought process that the younger generation are approaching the Black Lives Matter movement the same way that they approached civil rights in the 60s, that Jim Crow had to go away, right? That thing had to die. And what African Americans deal with from the standpoint of police brutality and things that we've seen on TV is that's just how things are. And we educate people on that we have to deal with it. And one of the things that I realized that this generation is saying is that, no, we're not going to deal with it. We want the country to pivot again. And I think every one of those issues is around that, is we're forcing the country to pivot when it comes to healthcare. We want the country to pivot when it comes to how we deal with immigration. We want the country to pivot when we talk about how we defund the police and police reform as a whole. We want the country to pivot in our election because we want our leaders to be folks that we have a respect for in those types of things, regardless of what we think, right? we had a debate that we thought that people on both sides were not, acting presidential when it came to how we do a presidential debate. So that's just kind of the foundation around the civil discourse piece I thought was important for us to discuss. Next slide. So one of the things I think at our institution that we have determined that's really important, and it's not a phrase that I coined, it's something that the president has really been pushing, is this sense of the culture of community. And within the culture of community that at Youngstown State, we believe in the cultural understanding and the critical to the growth of all of our students. And so that growth is how we work with students within this environment, building culture, how the culture influences everything that we do. It influences some of the decisions that we make, and often our decisions, our behaviors, our impression, and other things are through these cultural experiences. Therefore, it's important for us as a community to enhance and embrace all of those shared experiences to make sure that we are able to really achieve this true culture of community, right? One of the things that I have heard the president say from time to time, and I totally agree with, is that we may come, from different parts of the country with different viewpoints. At the end of the day, we're all penguins, right? There may be African-American penguins and international penguins, but at the end of the day, we all should leave Youngstown State as penguins united around this culture of community, right? So the next slide. The other piece of the culture of community, we broke it down into a variety of kind of these subcategories, right? The culture of respect and well-being. That's one of the cornerstones of what we consider the culture of community. It's that understanding the mutual respect of others, developing this campus community that everyone feels safe and secure. I truly believe in the hallmark of those kind of principles that we need to create an environment where people have this respect for others. We care about everyone else in the community, and that really sets the foundation. In addition, this whole thought process around the idea of inclusion and awareness, how important it is for us to help others understand the uniqueness and the strengths that present themselves as a result of us coming here from these different locations with these different experiences, with these different backgrounds, that we need to work to be inclusive in how we treat everyone on our campus, understanding that one another can help us overcome some of the kind of racial and ethnic tensions that may happen out there. And also know that our students are coming here, we get them 4, 5, maybe 6 years, right? And within that experience, we're having to combat or deal with 18 or 19 years of a level of understanding or values that they came to our campus with. And we only get 4 to 5 years to influence that behavior, right? So it's important for us as a community to look at our inclusion and awareness and making sure that every student that comes here has at least some of those beliefs and challenges, some of those beliefs and thought processes challenged, okay? Next slide. The other piece is as we do that, our hope is that we can wrap students around this understanding of creating traditions and connecting to the institution where that spirit of connectiveness and traditions are really important. While they're learning and while they're around and connecting with us, that they will contribute to the community itself through engaging in activities and developing this kind of penguin pride of being, and as an alum, I think I can say that myself because I, just realized I'm an alum myself of Youngstown State University just recently. And as a result of that, having a pride in the institution as a whole and the importance of connecting with the institution is really critical to helping our students understand. And then finally, our last one is dealing with the culture of excellence and success. Like we celebrate the success of others, and all of those things tie in together, right? If we understand who people are and treat them with respect, then we can celebrate their successes. We can celebrate the things that they do. And for me, it really ties into this whole understanding of the true success is better shared, right? If we all agree and we all share in everyone's else success, then as a community, we're going to be better. And those are the central kind of main points to our culture community. I think that's really, really, really important. Next slide. So within that, I think it's also important for us, those who work in the Division of Student Experience, and if you've worked with me and around me for any period of time, you know how important these core values are to how we work with students within the student experience, right? Our goal is to create the best experience for students that's humanly possible. And we do that by creating a sense of belonging, this meaning of connection to the community. We go back to the inclusion piece of developing a community that offers and celebrate differences of others, integrity in what we do, helping people to align their values and actions, and creating this kind of connectedness in such a way that when we deal with people, they understand that we're coming from a place of integrity. We also want to build on the autonomy of our students, encourage them to be independent, promoting that, and also helping them make what we consider to be healthy lifestyle choices. And then we're back to the respect piece, which is, you know, treating students with respect. We value people. We want to treat students with respect. We want students to treat us with respect. And then also the passion. And, you know, that's one of my main points is passion. I believe helping students to find their passion is really, really important. And I think for students who leave here without knowing what they're passionate about, I think that we let them walk away with at a disservice if they haven't defined that out or defined that for themselves. What makes them excited? What makes them want to get up every day and contribute? And then with that, this piece of importance of being of service to the community. It's really important that we create this sense of this responsibility that you have to give back as a result of what you've been given. I just left an event a few minutes ago with a young 12, 13-year-old who gave $1,200 to our Veterans Center as a result of money that she raised because of her grandpa, right? And so how powerful it is for someone that young to recognize the importance of giving back and providing something for people she don't even know, right? And so that's what we really want to encourage when we talk about building this experience of our core values, of building this sense of service back to others because how important it is for us to give because of what's been given to us. Okay? So that right there kind of sets the kind of framework or foundation around our discussion in regards to how we deal with civil discourse. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jaronski to talk about how do we engage in those processes.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Howard. So Dr. Howard talked a lot about our values and our culture, and that's important to understand where we come from. So excuse the blurry picture here, but let's talk a little bit more about how we can use our values, both YSU's as well as our own values, to stay grounded in order to have conversations around difficult topics where we might not always see eye to eye or we might not always agree. So just to point out some things about values that I think are really important. Values are really those things that we believe are important, and they reflect the ways that we live and work. So just in that definition, to me, it's about who you are and how to ground things. It helps determine our priorities. It's also a way to measure if we are being successful in being the people that we want to be. So understanding your values, what do you believe in, what's important to you, is a great place and foundation from which to start to have potentially some difficult conversations. Okay, as a psychologist, I've got to put in some psychoeducational pieces here. I think it's always important to what I would call practice the pause. So if we're going to engage in an interaction or a conversation where there's something that might be very important to me and you might have a different perspective on this, it's going to be really helpful for me to, again, ground myself in in my values, but also to pause. And what I mean by that, I love this quote, so I borrowed it, is really about taking a pause before we judge, before we assume, before we accuse, before we are going to react, essentially, in order for us to avoid preemptively saying or doing something that might derail the conversation or not get us to a point where we could understand each other or hear each other. So practicing the pause is something to pay attention to. Okay, so beyond just kind of thinking about that, what does a pause entail? So first step to me is always about breathing. So I always encourage people, take a breath. sometimes the best place to start is to let the breath out. So one of the ways to do that is just kind of to sigh. And that will allow you to take a deeper breath in. As you breathe, when you're pausing, that also allows us to take time to think. We got to engage our brain cells. And so being able to pause slows things down and allows us to start thinking before we respond or act. I want to really encourage us to think about listening for understanding. If any of you have ever been in some of my other presentations, especially around suicide prevention or having difficult conversations, I've got this cute little, I guess I should have put it in here, picture with a puppy dog with an ear sticking up listening. Essentially what we want to do is remember to try to listen for understanding. Oftentimes when we're listening to each other, we're really listening with the intention of responding. So if you've ever been in a situation where we're doing an icebreaker and we're in a group of people and you're going around the room and everybody has to, a typical one, say your name and something interesting about yourself. As we're going around the room, we often don't do a really good job of listening to what other people are saying. We're in our own heads trying to figure out, what am I going to say? What's interesting about me? What am I going to share? That's listening for responding, not for understanding. Listening for understanding would mean I am truly trying to listen to that other person's perspective and point of view, not just waiting for an opportunity to jump in and say my piece. We want to try to keep an open mind. Again, it's easier to do if we're grounded in our values, if we've taken a pause, if we've taken a deep breath, if we're focused on trying to listen rather than just respond. That allows us to hear a lot of different things. Again, it does not mean we have to agree with everything, but taking in information is really about keeping an open mind. We also encourage you to separate out the difference between the person from the problem or the person from the message. So something that somebody says you don't have to agree with, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that person is bad or evil or has ill intent. So again, being able to pause allows us to separate out some of those things that when we don't, we can just automatically assume and respond in ways that aren't civil or aren't necessarily helpful. So next we want to shift gears and talk a little bit more about what's the difference between a discussion and a debate, because we think there are some different things, and knowing those differences can help us and help you have a more civil conversation or discourse.
So I think part of what we want to start with, that this is where you jump in and participate, and talk a little bit about what are some of the concepts of a discussion, right?
Yes.
Are there any folks out there that want to volunteer, or should I be calling for volunteers?
Sure, I'll go ahead and start. I'm not sure if my audio is working sometimes, but
You're good.
Okay. I would just say, I guess a debate is more competitive. There's really, I guess, that aspect of there being a winner. While discussion seems more of cooperative. We're going to work together on this and figure out a solution ourselves. So I guess it's just how you go about that conversation.
So what would you say are some of the key concepts of a discussion?
The key concepts, I would just say collaborative would be like, just there's probably goal oriented for
Okay.
it. Like, okay, this is what we need to do. How can we go about doing it? So, yeah, I would say goal oriented and probably collaborative.
Okay. Awesome. Anybody want to add to that? I'm taking notes, by the way.
When I think of a discussion, I really think that listening and being open to learning are really important parts of it. So really just coming into the space, not just with your perspective, but with the intention of really gaining understanding of the other person's perspective.
Thank you. So I'm also hearing there's a bit of a mindset, right? Like having that framework, or as you said, intention, Erin, of, okay, what's my intention here? What's this space going to be? And I'm going to stay open-minded.
there's also this kind of unspoken agreement, right? That we're in a discussion. Like, if you ever been in a discussion with someone, there's this understanding that you truly are hoping to. There's this give and take when it comes to the discussion, right? And you can really feel when the discussion shifts from a discussion to a debate. If you've ever been in one of those environments, right, where you've had that happen, where the discussion has shifted.
These are all really, go ahead. Oh, that was me. So echo, sorry. So these are all really good. Anything else people would want to add in terms of a discussion, something that would highlight, or, something that marks this interaction as a discussion before I summarize?
Melissa commented in the chat box, active listening and staying attentive with an open mind.
That's awesome. Okay, so we have things like active listening, staying open with an open mind. There's a give and a take. It's cooperative, it's collaborative. Potentially it's goal-oriented. You're looking for a resolution or an outcome or some end goal. Again, listening and active listening. Being open to different perspectives or viewpoints, or as Aaron said, learning. There's intention. It's again, what's the intentionality of this? And there's an agreement. Sometimes it's very spelled out. This is what we're going to do today. Sometimes it's unspoken. I'm going to respond to the chat. Okay. Anything else in terms of discussion before we switch gears to what's a debate? I think you nailed it. So what's the difference in a debate?
I think a debate implies a winner and a loser, right and wrong, a very dualistic kind of perspective.
Okay, sounds great. Other things people would want to add?
I would just say, since as people are thinking, is that there's this kind of thought process that you have to be committed to your viewpoint, right? When you're debating, you don't feel like you can give, right? Because you have a position and you think it's your responsibility to hold to that position, right? There's no flexibility in a debate. Your goal is to ultimately, I think someone mentioned earlier, to win or lose, or there's a whole goal there behind it. Even though you're not trying to win, but there is this thought process behind. If I'm debating, then I'm holding to my position. I'm not gonna, regardless of what you say, I'm not gonna move on that position at all. And there, in my mind, lies the difference between the two.
Yeah, we've got some additional comments coming in to the chat, and they echo what you're saying, Dr. Howard. It's proving a point or selling an idea. So yes, very focused on this is my perspective, and I'm sticking to it. So I don't want to be swayed. I want to sway you. That it's more formal potentially in the discussion, or it's not necessarily a discussion, but again, more formal in terms of the presentation, and that it would be closed off to other viewpoints. So again, that sense of this is my perspective, and yours or who I'm debating is probably going to be something different. We're not going to align. This is great.
There's also this thought process that with the debate, there's a talent that certain people possess, right? Some people are really good at the debate. So, and I'll say this: you guys can't tell my wife this, but my wife is a better debater than me, right? I usually lose the arguments between my wife and I because she's such a good debater, because she remembers everything I did, for one. And then there's also this, but she's really good at putting her point together, organizing her thoughts and saying, this is why I feel this way and this is my point, right? And there's sometimes a debate that when you talk about a win or a loss in a debate, some people can be really good at putting their points together, and they win because of their skill of debating. Not because they're right, because of their skill of being able to put their point out there, and the other person is not as good at explaining their viewpoint.
I think that's an excellent point. Anything else before I kind of summarize for us all? All right. So again, a debate really, we're saying, has to do with a winner or loser. There's one perspective. It's about selling that perspective and winning that perspective. Not necessarily are you right or wrong, although there can be elements of that. But again, I'm going to get you to believe my point of view. So there isn't that flexibility. There isn't that discussion. There isn't that openness to learning or hearing somebody else. Again, it's pushing my point or my agenda. And sometimes there's a talent to that some of us don't have as much as other people. I'll put myself in that category. Anything else that we missed in terms of concept of a debate? Okay. So go ahead, Dr. Howard, tell us, what's the difference and what do we do with this?
So as some of it was great that you guys gave some of those illustrations of the examples, right? And that's what we talked about, the difference between the debate and the discussion. With the debate, there is this winner loser. Like either someone's going to win or someone's going to lose. The debate creates this perfect situation of expressing kind of your intense emotions. And I would say too, when you're debating, the emotions in of itself are really powerful, right? Because you're coming from this space because of how you're protecting your position, that it really can be very intense, right? You can, and really that's where, when you talk about civil discourse, within the conversation around debating, is those emotional connections is really what makes it really intense, right? And that's why, we'd rather have people move toward a discussion as opposed to that truly strong debate. Because within the discussion, there's an opportunity to express your viewpoints. There's the respecting of other people's viewpoint if you approach it from a discussion standpoint. And then there's opportunity there for some dialogue. With a debate, there's really not a lot of opportunity for dialogue. A debate is one-sided. A debate is, this is my point, and then while you're sitting there, there's no listening. There's developing my counter argument to what you just said, right? There's never an opportunity for what we talked about earlier with this listening piece, is for you to be influenced to go, oh, I didn't think about it that way. With a debate, it is a constant hammering and just redeveloping what my arguments are to totally feel my position. And what you have are these two components, like the illustration shows, these two people going back and forth at each other. There's this, this kind of tug and pull constantly with the debate. And our goal is to get people more toward the aspect of developing a discussion, creating this, like you see on the other example, is sitting around the table. Everyone's talking, everyone's contributing, and we're hoping that we're coming to a viewpoint that is reasonable and logical.
I would agree. We good for the next slide, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So we wanted to show you a 30-second clip from actually two politicians, since we're in the middle of elections or we're counting of votes, about how to come together and be supportive even when you disagree on something. So keep your fingers crossed. First time I've done this. Let's see if it works or if I'm going to have to go to my external source. Oh, that's what I was afraid of. Okay. So let me see if I can, hang on, technology. We will, I'm going to stop sharing that. And I am going to share
That'd be really impressive. You had a backup. You just already got it set up like that. Oh, look at you.
Well, let's see if the sound works. No, of course not. Ugh. Okay, anybody good at technology, tell me what I'm missing.
I think that when you choose to share, you want to select optimize for sound and
Right,
video or something along those lines. There's another sharing option.
got you.
Ah, there it is.
Let me try
Audio, video.
this. I don't know if this is going to work. No, that's still not working. All right.
You see at the top where it says audio, video?
I will go to stop sharing. Okay, so share. Yes. Oh, you know, I clicked that button before we started and it didn't keep my setting.
My name's
So
Chris
let's
Peterson.
try this again.
And I'm Spencer Cox.
And
we approve this
I'm Chris
message.
Peterson.
And I'm Spencer Cox.
I can't hear
We
the
are
sound.
currently
Can
in
you
the
guys
final
hear
days
it?
of campaigning against each other to be your next governor.
And while I think you should vote for me,
Yeah, but really you should vote for me.
there are some things we both agree on.
We can debate issues without degrading each other's character.
We can disagree without hating each other.
And win or lose in Utah, we work together.
So let's show the country that there's a better way.
My name's Chris Peterson.
And I'm Spencer Cox.
And
we approve this message.
I really think that kind of speaks to, you know, that's what you want, right? Are two politicians that can come and really be an example of what a debate should be about, right? These are my viewpoints. These are the two things that we both hold dear, but we're willing to, you know, have that discussion, but not tear each other apart because we have differences. And so if you got anything from our presentation today, you know, I think we kind of brought the whole discussion around the end with that video of that. You know, that's something that we really want to make sure that everyone fully understands, is that there is a way to have civil discourse and you can have two different viewpoints, but you can also have mutual respect for each other. And so I think that was the best example. Hopefully you've seen that. That's not the first time you've seen that video. This was done in Utah with, you know, the two governors running against each other, and they decided to do this. And it's kind of, you know, been all over the place. I think it's had on YouTube, it's had like over, you know, 2 or 3 million views by individuals who've seen it and shared it. And so we thought it'd be important to share that as well.
So wrapping up, thinking about how to engage in civil discourse. Again, just some highlights. We're talking about knowing your values and starting with that place. Again, encouraging people to look at our YSU and student experience values in terms of inclusion and just totally went blank. Wanted to highlight another one. Respect, I guess, was the one I was thinking of in particular. Reminding yourself about pause, taking a breath before we engage in this, that we're trying to listen for understanding. So again, we're encouraging people to go for the discussion where you're open to other viewpoints and perspectives. You're willing to listen and maybe learn something about the other person, about another point of view. We want you to lead with what you are for, as opposed to what you are against, and to keep an open mind. What else would you add?
I think those are great. I was going to say, as we move forward, it's important to be reminded of the core values that we started with, right? And it'd be important to be mindful of our culture of community as a whole. You know, those are, as you think about debating or discussing certain topics, it's important for you to keep those as the foundation in regards to how we expect discussions to be had. You know, just like the video that we showed of the two governors running for office, we want to approach any topic or any main issue that we have from the viewpoint of understanding that everyone has a right to their opinion and their thought process. So as we continue to work through this election, as you know, it may be the end of the week before we get to knowing who the president's going to be for the next 4 years. Regardless of who wins or loses the election, at the end of the day, we're all going to be Americans, right? We're all going to be. We've demonstrated our process by participating in the electoral process, by casting our votes. We've done our part, and so now whatever happens, we also walk away understanding that what was supposed to happen has happened, and the person who won has won, and they've won the election, fair and square, and we move on. And we go back to what we have been doing since before the election, continue to live our lives, continue to respect each other, and continue to move forward. However, if you have difficulty, moving forward, I think, next slide, it's important to understand that we have a variety of resources for our students to use. And I would encourage you to have our students go to these particular websites. We have an election kind of stress kit that we've developed. I've checked this out. It's really great. It gives a lot of tips for our students. There's also videos on managing uncertain times that I think we can encourage students to watch. And in addition, we provide some telehealth services for those students that really truly need it. And you can definitely call and make an appointment if you want to do that. We also have developed a program called Trash Talk, which I learned a little bit about this morning. That's sponsored by the Student Experience, which is an app that allows students to, put something in, and then we're actually, you're actually throwing it away. And then we're going to take a lot of those topics that people have put out there and thrown away. And I think RJ and a couple of our staff have been working on. They're the ones that are going to be monitoring this, and you may see later on that they may have a discussion about some of the topics that people have decided to throw into the trash that we have a conversation about later on. So, Ms. Ann?
Okay. So that would, I'm going to come back to me, maybe? Anyway, that would conclude our program. Are there other questions or comments? Anything that you wanted to give voice to at this point?
Okay. Well, we hope this was beneficial. And if there's anything that we can do to continue the dialogue, our thought is this will be recorded for students to watch at a later date for those that could not be on today. And we hope, like I said, it'll be something that people can use that can help them get through what we consider to be some really different times with everything that's going on between COVID and the election. Hopefully this can be something people can use to give them comfort. So thanks again. And thanks, Ann, for partnering with me again on this topic.
Enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you all.